Classic Hearthstone came out in 2014. But as you probably are aware, Classic Hearthstone was in the game for 7 years of its lifespan as more expansions rotated in and out. The base set of the game still stayed in standard. But over those years, cards were banned, put into the Hall of Fame, which I'll explain very shortly. They were nerfed or they were not nerfed. Today, you're going to try to figure out if you can guess if a classic card was banned, if it was nerfed, or it was just not nerfed whatsoever. I'm only showing you cards from 2014 Classic Hearthstone. There's only the base set, which you should be familiar with, right? Because we've done videos before.
Yeah. Yeti, banned. I'm done.
There is no Yeti in this video, I promise you.
Oh, I know this card. Okay. Yeah. This card was in like a million decks in that first tournament.
It was.
Aether Drake, 5 mana, 4/4 dragon. Spell damage gets +1 and battle cries. Draw a card. Sick card. Value engine.
It's very, very good in Classic. Very good in Classic.
Maybe engine's a strong term, but you get value. Okay. I think I even played this card in my very brief couple of games of Hearthstone in my life.
Nice.
I think yeah. So what's the question?
So you obviously know this card was played in Classic, right?
Yeah.
But over the time it was in Standard, in the base set, it was either nerfed, not nerfed, or Hall of Famed. So do you think this card is strong enough to get nerfed?
Is this card strong enough to get nerfed? Oh my God. That would be weird, right? That would be a bizarre thing to do. That would be like their priorities were kind of off. Like in Magic, this is a fine card in limited. It would never see regular standard play. Even in older formats, it would rarely see standard play.
Okay.
I can't. No. This card. This is wholesome. This is apple pie in America. This is just
apple
the perfect
pie in America.
Yeah, that's what we use to say it's wholesome. It's traditional. It's good Christian values. Nuclear family. Aether Drake is there on the Rushmore of cards that did nothing wrong. Nah. This card is great. This card needed no changes.
To be clear, you don't think it was nerfed and you don't think it was Hall of Fame. You think the card was just completely fine?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go through. I gotta explain to you real fast what the Hall of Fame is, okay? Before we get to what basically where this card went, because the Hall of Fame is a really, really important thing. Often, what Hearthstone would do is look at the current base set and ask themselves, is this card taking over a spot? Does it limit design? Does it do something to the standard format that limits us from doing something cooler? And Aether Drake was one of those cards. This card was Hall of Fame.
What?
Now Hearthstone.
Wait, you can't play this anymore?
I believe it is currently in the state. So basically what happened was the classic set was the base set for a very long time, up until I want to say Ashes of Outland. No, the year after Fortune of the Barons. They replaced the basic set with something called the core set, which is a much more curated list, not only cards from classic from across Hearthstone. So you still have a base collection from every class. It's just not older cards only from classic. And I believe Aether Drake was added back in. I'm actually going to double check now. Give me a hot second here. No, it is currently not in the core set.
Malagos, 9 mana, big dragon. That's such a cool dragon. That is straight out Game of Thrones dragon.
He's dope.
Yeah, this is a 4/12 spell damage +5. I mean, that's a booty. This is a big butted dragon. Spell damage +5 can be a lot. But why? Why would this get nerfed or Hall of Fame? It's 9 mana. That's so much.
Could also not be nerfed, just to remind you. That is
Yeah. But now I'm just I'll never pick that. Obviously, these have all been nerfed and banned.
See, remember when I said to you off stream, I was on that 2017 video I showed you, I forgot what card I showed. I think I showed you Loot Hoarder first, and I think that rolled you. It got you in a weird mindset. I did the exact same thing with Aether Drake, because I knew you wouldn't say it would be Hall of Fame. I knew you wouldn't.
I mean, of course not. No, I love that card. I don't love many Hearthstone cards. I love that card. I don't know why. Just the very first time I read it, watching the tournament thing, I got excited. I was what a perfect little card. It's so cute that it's dope. In a competitive tournament. Oh my God.
So good. Actually, it felt so good to play this card. It's crazy. I miss the days.
Anyway, this card, this big nasty dragon. let's reverse engineer it. If this card got Hall of Famed, is it because it was the only thing people played for 9 mana? No way. Not with the cards you've shown me in Hearthstone. Even from like those eras. No way. Not like that. So it would need another reason. Did it get nerfed or Hall of Famed because you guys had a set that busted dragons?
Okay.
Maybe if there was a version that, like, you know, you play like some 3 or 4 mana card that brought out like a 1/1 version of this, and then you cast some spells and they died, then maybe this had to, this got the treatment. Like, maybe we're cooking here.
Okay. I did show you a card that could do that.
Yeah, that's right. I'm remembering. I don't remember the names, but I do remember the talk about the meta. Yeah, Barnes. So it's really tough for me to look at a card that seems, quote, fine, and then also
quote fine. Yeah.
Quote fine. Yeah, like rate seems fine. You play this giant thing. It has a big butt. If you untap with it, you get to burn and ate the countryside. That's great.
Yes.
But like if a way to cheat it out shows up, are they like, well, we'll just take out the payoff and not address the problem, right? Maybe they do something like that. So did you get cut from Classic for just not being cool enough? I've definitely seen cooler 9 mana cards. You've shown me so many. So the idea here is like you get this out and somehow then resolve a bunch of spells or abilities and the opponent's dead. So it like creates an OTK, right? Yeah. I still think that's fine. Like at 9, the thing is if there's a way to cheat it, but if there's a way to cheat it, get rid of the way to cheat it. I don't know. I'm lost in the sauce. I'm so gone.
There is a category for what you are saying, which is not nerfed. I'm just again, reminder.
Sure, this card's not nerfed. Yeah.
Okay, so Malagos, like you said, is a really cool card. 9 mana, 4/12, huge ass. But
huge.
The thing about the Malagos, though, is spell damage is a very, very scary keyword in Hearthstone, because if you could actually play this card and still cast spells, you will probably just win the game on the spot. But it was never that bad. It was never nerfed. You were correct.
Yes, I knew it.
you were just correct.
Straight confidence. Let's go.
Good job. What about this one?
Murloc War Leader, 3 mana, 3/3 Murloc. All other Murlocs have +2/+1. Whoa. That's a rate. That's a rate. Like we have a lot of typal synergy in Magic. A lot of like you play all of this type of dork, get all these buffs. That rate is really good. Like we don't have this at this rate in Magic, I don't think. Like we have 4 mana, all your zombies get +2/+1 on a 2/1. This is a 3/3 for 3. Is that okay? Why would they Hall of Fame this? Because too many Murlocs were getting too good, and this was just a staple that made everything hit too hard. Why would they do that instead of nerf this? Because they could just change it to Murlocs get +1/+1 and everything's fine. Maybe they turn this into like a 3/1 so it dies easy. They could do that, but maybe they wanted the Wild Murloc deck to still be an absolute banger to keep up, because I imagine Murlocs in Wild are getting combo raffle stomped. So that's like my logic would be somebody loves these creepy little weirdos and wants their deck to be good, and Wild should be a place that you can play your creepy, stupid Murloc deck if you want to.
Okay.
Like that's the purpose of that format, as I understand it, at least looking at similar things Magic Arena has done. But is this busted? I can see people being over it. It's just automatic in every Murloc deck, and then maybe you try to copy it or you try to search it up in some way. You know what? I'm gonna go with my first saga, the story I'm weaving in my head, the story of a Murloc war leader who was too good on rate, but somebody loved this guy and his little minions and wanted the frickin' Wild deck to still have a punch. I'm gonna say Hall of Famed.
Okay, it's interesting how you're thinking about they care about Wild whatsoever. That's very funny.
Okay, am I wrong?
Yeah, you are wrong. He was not
I'm 100% wrong. Okay.
So, Murloc War Leader is actually, he was a very good card. Like, I think you addressed it pretty quickly that in Hearthstone, like tribal decks are probably just as bad as they are in like Magic. Like most of the time they don't work, but Murloc War Leader in specific really carried a lot of Murloc decks because the +2 and the +1 were really relevant because it's an aura. If you ended up killing the War Leader with like an AoE, but the other Murlocs still lived because of the +1 health, they would still survive, right? Because the aura
which is
a really, yeah, it's like, for instance, like, let's say you did 3 damage, but your Murlocs were at 4 health because of the War Leader. They would just go to 1 health. This was a really, really good aura to have. Now, this card in specific was really interesting because it said all other Murlocs, which means if your opponent had Murlocs on the board, they would also get buffed by this card.
Nice.
Which is a really weird synergy thing to have. So what they decided to do was nerf this card to only have +2 attack. And that actually significantly nerfed this card. That was a really big deal because you couldn't trade as effectively anymore. It was harder to maintain a board because of without that +1 health. This card could single-handedly like make a Murloc deck work.
Sylvanas Windrunner, 6 mana, 5/5 Death Rattle. Take control of a random enemy minion. I know this one too. I saw this one in one of the tournaments for sure. It was in a number of decks.
Played a ton in Classic.
Oh, yeah.
Good card.
I feel like the name came up so much in that tournament. Well, if they draw Sylvanas or if they have Sylvanas on the board, you know, good things, bad things. Yeah.
She was good.
Death Rattle, take control of a random enemy minion.
You have nothing like this in Magic, right? This is like a...
Yeah.
This is a Hearthstone exclusive.
I mean, actually, no. I bet they do this in Magic. They like, you know, there are some cards that like say random thing, and you're up to figure out how to figure out the random.
Okay, fair enough.
But like in Magic, this would be a really fun card. So the question is, was it Hall of Fame? Did she go Hall of Fame? Is she that busted? I don't think so. I'm trying to think about cards and how they developed over time. Is there something that specifically worked with this? There's some good Death Rattle effects, you know? I've seen a few of them, but did this card have to change for that? I don't think so. I don't think so. That doesn't make sense to me. Did this card get nerfed? I feel like I saw this really early on, and I feel like it was the same. I can't think of any changes. So why would it need to get nerfed as the game went on? I don't, like, my gut says no. But my mind says this is an effect people get sick of. And I don't think people would be angry about her leaving after a few years, you know? After like the 15th time that somebody did some Sylvanas and make it die and steal your big meatball thing, I don't think people would miss her after a while. That might be reason enough for somebody to Hall of Fame her.
Okay.
I'm sure there are other things that steal opponents' stuff, but maybe they just wanted to come about it in a different way. Because maybe by the 7th year of this, people were just like, can we do it different?
Okay, that's fair.
Now, that said, I don't really believe that. That's just me rationalizing. I'm going to say this card's fine. I wouldn't be surprised if this card was still around. Yeah, I'm going to say not nerfed.
Okay, so let's take you back for a second. You saw the Classic tournaments. Sylvanas Windrunner was a staple in Control Warrior. It was a very good card in Control Warrior. It allowed like the board to be like, you have to like kind of risk it with Sylvanas, because if you left it on board and you want to develop something, you have to then remove it first, or you can just hope it doesn't steal your really good minion. Taking control of a random enemy minion was very powerful. For comparison, there's a card in Priest called Mind Control that is 10 mana at this point in time. So this effect being a neutral 5/5 was really, really good in Classic. Now, as the years go on, would Sylvanas be played today? Actually, she's not played today. She's in the core set and she doesn't get played currently. But in 2017, she was Hall of Famed with Azure Drake. With almost the same logic as Azure Drake was, by the way. You almost had it. I was like, holy shit.
I almost got there. I just couldn't get there, man. I couldn't.
So I think your logic of like seeing the same Death Rattle over and over again is a really interesting perspective, because I'm sure people did get tired of seeing this card. Me personally, I actually really like this card. I think it's a really cool way of doing the RNG aspect in Hearthstone, because you can kind of plan for it, as much as it might fuck you at some point. It's a cool card to have in the game. I'll give you their dev response for this one. Similar to Azure Drake, it's hard to see a card at the 6 mana cost outvalue Sylvanas. In addition, Sylvanas has the most powerful Death Rattle effect in the game. We have exciting Death Rattle build-arounds coming soon, and in combination with Sylvanas, they would be too powerful for Standard. She was rotated in 2017.
It restricted design space. Okay, so they didn't feel like they could do what they wanted to do with this card around. Frothing Berserker. 3 mana, 2/4. Whenever a minion takes damage, gain +1 attack. Whenever a minion takes damage, gain +1 attack. Whenever any minion takes damage?
Whenever
Opponents,
any minion,
yours?
anything takes damage on the board, yeah, it gets one attack.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's probably not fine, is it? I bet there's some kind. Okay, it's low enough rate that you get it out early. This thing could go insane. Was it the Grim Patron?
Yes.
Yes. And I think I remember, God, I think what we talked about that got nerfed out of that was like the thing that let them attack that turn. Yeah, it gave them rush.
I wasn't going to show you Warsong Commander. Warsong Commander's 3 mana 2/3. Whenever you summon a minion with 3 or less attack, give it charge.
So what we're looking for over 6 years is something that like does 1 damage to all the minions and then does it again and then does it again, right? And then you're attacking for like 15 or 20 with this thing. Sure. If the opponent had a board of like, a bunch of 3 toughness, just dum-dums. And then you're like, deal 1 damage to everything, deal 1 damage to everything, deal 1 damage to everything. Boom. Did that ever happen? I don't know. This seems like the kind of open-ended card that is like itching for a little tweak nerf when things got out of hand. Okay. Over 6 years, given some of the things I've seen around, I bet that happened. I don't feel like this is taking up design. I don't feel like this is just occupying the 3-mana design spot forever. It's good. It does feel like you want a little build around it, but maybe I'm underestimating that. Maybe this card just as it is, like play a 1-drop, play a 2-drop, play this, smash into things. You have a 3-mana 4/4 that gets bigger and it starts punching things and gets bigger. It's any minion. It's just, I can see the appeal, and then I can see like, well, at some point that might have gotten out of hand. But would they Hall of Fame it? I don't think it just hung around and eventually got Hall of Famed. I think it got nerfed. I think something broke somewhere, and I think that they made it like whenever a minion your opponent controls, or whenever a minion you control, or whenever this minion or something like that. That's my call. I'm going to say this got nerfed.
So Frothing Berserker is actually a really interesting card because I think in terms of my entire time playing this game, when this card is played on the board, it's the scariest card in the game. Like it is, it's a card you have to look at and go like, God, I can't leave this up, otherwise I'm just gonna die. And it doesn't really have a flashy effect, it's just kind of there. So Grim Patron was kind of the first time we really saw the potential with this card. Getting 20 damage from hand and just killing you felt fun, but that was way more about that was a Warsong Commander thing, I think, above everything else. You were talking about dealing damage multiple times to your board. They did release cards that could do that. This is like a very easy card to build around. But Frothing Berserker was never nerfed and it was never Hall of Famed.
Okay.
This card, I think, suffered from, you really needed it to survive 1 turn for it to be a problem, and often it just was not the case. Like it would be removed pretty quickly.
Blade Fury. I know this one too. 2 mana, destroy your weapon and deal its damage to all enemies. I've seen this played many times. I've also heard announcers again and again curse the poor people in the seat by being like, well, unless they draw Blade Fury. Just absolutely trying to inject their influence on the game with their 5-head observation of, oh my God, draw an AoE that does all this damage to your opponent's stuff and they might win. If this card got Hall of Famed or nerfed, it would have to be that there was like a very stupidly cheap way to equip a high damage weapon, I think. And if that exists, they must love that way more than they love Blade Fury. You just said it's one of the only board clears in Rogue. Everybody needs a little board clear.
Yeah, depending. Yeah. Okay.
I remember the comments. I have not forgotten. It might have been a year ago now, but I have not forgotten all the comments of CGB doesn't understand how easy it is to clear the board in Hearthstone. Well, how could it be easy if they Hall of Famed Blade Fury? It is an absurdly good card. I've seen it be a good card. And I think a little bit of the Sylvanas logic applies of like how many times, how many years can players watch their opponent dig for and top deck the Blade Fury, right?
That is fair.
There's probably a component to this that is like, well, we're probably for Rogue, as long as weapons are a part of Rogue, and the only Rogue stuff I've seen involves weapons, like including like some of the other videos we made with like the Titans and stuff, right? Or Primordial. What was the undersea one?
Colossals.
The Colossals, right? The Rogue One had weapons. Yeah. Yeah. So it's like they're never going to stop having weapons, which means they're never going to have a better, more amazing top-decky board clear than Blade Fury. And when you do that to your fan base for like 7 years, I can see... You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So that's where we're going with this, is like, if Blade Fury Hall of Fame... The optics, again, marketing not involved, but the optics make sense to me. I think they could talk themselves into it. They want to design a different board clear. It's hard to do it at a better rate. Maybe they did want it in classic because it was an important part of those things. This speaks... if I'm starting to understand this concept, if I'm starting to actually get into this video, I think this speaks to me as a Hall of Famer. And like my mind can conceptualize that, and I'm gonna, so far going with my gut has sucked ass, so we're gonna go with the mind. We're gonna say Blade Fury went into the Hall of Fame.
Okay, final answer.
Yeah.
Okay, Blade Fury did not go to the Hall of Fame.
Ah!
But let me
my
explain.
mind is wrong too. I got no gut and no mind. What the hell? Okay.
So Blade Flurry in Classic was really good, obviously, because it was a board clear. But the thing about Blade Flurry is that it also hit your opponent's hero. So the good thing to do with Blade Flurry was set up a weapon where you could theoretically like double hit your opponent, right? You would swing at your opponent's face, you'd Blade Flurry, you would clear the board, but you'd also do your damage to the enemy hero, which could do a lot depending on how much buffs you had. And with newer cards coming out in Hearthstone that would buff your weapon even more, Blade Flurry got really scary, like you probably saw in a tournament video. Because when Blade Flurry was played, you're really happy you cleared that board, but that damage was so relevant. And in a deck like Miracle Rogue, where the Gadgets and Auctioneer was on board, and you keep playing your Deadly Poisons to buff up your weapon, and all of a sudden you clear your opponent's board while you're doing so much damage, it's a very, very good card. They decided to not only nerf this card to 4 mana, but in the same patch, make it so it only hits enemy minions. At 4 mana, this card was literally Old Yeller. It did not see any play whatsoever after this. And
damn it.
It was, I think now in Wild, it is back to 2 mana, but it does not hit your opponent's face.
Power Overwhelming. 1 mana, give a friendly minion +4/+4 until end of turn, then it dies horribly. What?
What's confusing?
Is horribly a keyword?
No, it just dies horribly.
That's just flavor because they wanted to put something there.
Yeah.
Cool card. One mana +4/+4 buff, and then it dies. We have Giant Growth in Magic, which is 1 mana +3/+3, but it doesn't require the thing to die. And that's, good foundational card. We have a card in Magic called Berserk that doubles attacking creatures' power for 1 mana, and then at the end of turn dies. So, good card. Did it get nerfed? There are a lot of buttons to push on this, including reducing the +4 toughness or the +4, or like if you take the power away, that's sad, but maybe it's like +4/+0 or something. If there was some way to make it live or come back. Doesn't sound like it though. You could also just give out lower stats. Yeah, make it 2 mana. That would probably kill it. Okay. Did you Hall of Fame this card? God, there might be an argument that it just enabled too many tricks, combos. I'm thinking of this versus Blade Fury, versus Sylvanas. Like, were people like, God, do I have to get Power Overwhelming again, bro? And I don't think so. That doesn't make sense to me.
Sure.
This seems like a good, honest go, shoot for the head kind of card. There's a card in Magic called Blood Rush that reminds me of. No, I don't see it with this card. I don't see it. Okay. I think it could be nerfed. I think it could be Hall of Fame, but I don't see the reason. If I can't see the reason, I just can't. Then I'm just literally throwing darts at a board. This to me looks like a cool, fun card. It looks like it would be fun in the game, and there might be a combo involved, but sets rotate. Whatever. You don't need to get rid of this card. I'm going to say that this card went unchanged, and I don't have confidence much in that, but I can't but I don't see the reason why they do anything to it, to be honest.
Okay. Power Overwhelming was a very good card. It was played in Zoo Warlock. It was played in Combo Warlock. One of the best combos in the game for this was you would play Leroy at 4. You would play Power Overwhelming to put it at 10 attack, and then you would use Faceless Manipulator to copy the Leroy, and then you would have 20 damage from hand. And if you're just killing your opponent with 20 damage from hand, you felt pretty good.
That's sick.
That actually happened a lot. This card was Hall of Famed.
Okay.
Now, I can't wait for you to hear the reasoning for this card.
Okay.
Like, once we've already... Like, now, remember
Seems
when
like a fun card. I'm so confused. Okay.
Remember what I said about Blade Flurry, how they just kind of old yellered it, and they said, fuck it, like, we're just going to kill this card? Listen to the reasoning for Power Overwhelming, okay? This card allows for extremely mana-efficient minion trades, or high spikes of damage for only 1 mana. Keeping this card exclusive to Wild will prevent some crazy combinations and spike damage. Warlock decks also tend to use a lot of classic cards, so the decks will change, so the deck changes less when new expansions released. This change will help increase the variety of cards in Warlock decks over time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was your cool, fun card that people liked enabling neat stuff, keeping you from selling more shit in your packs? Is that what I just heard?
Do I think it's a bit silly to die from Leroy at 20 life or at 20 life back in Classic? I mean, there's way worse stuff than that. Like we saw Force of Nature Savage War with being like an infinitely worse problem.
You get 30 health and you get armor. What's your excuse for being at 20?
Yeah, dude, just get more life.
Get good.
Talking? Just don't take damage.
What the hell? Yeah.
So yeah,
why are you losing?
This card shockingly was Hall of Famed. This was the same year as Drake and Sylvanas, by the way.
Bad year for fun cards, man.
Bad year. This
you know what? I wasn't even part of it. I only am part of this video. Bad call. Terrible decision that year. Actually, fire them. Don't fire people because I say anything, actually. But yeah, like seriously, bring it all back. Undo that one. Oh boy. Blessed Champion, 5 mana, double a minion's attack. 5 mana? Double a minion's attack? Is this good?
You tell me. What do you think about it?
I think that's really expensive. It is permanent. So, I mean, man, you need to be in position with the minion who is very strong, so that doubling it pays off. 5 mana is such a number. The price-wise, it seems fair. If there's no way to double a minion's attack cheaper than this, trust me, it'll show up eventually because that's how magic works. So I'm thinking about, you guys have some effects like immune, or no, that's like a hero power, but you have like Divine Shield, you have Stealth, is that what it is? Like some things that like you can't mess with this card until something else happens. And maybe that's part of a setup where you use this to double its power and then you double its power again and eventually attack with everything. Still 5 is so much. It feels like so much to me. There's Power Overwhelming and there's this. I would Hall of Fame Power Overwhelming 100 times before this. I'm
just gonna remind you, right? The thing about Hearthstone is class identity. So I'm gonna read you the exact philosophy of the Hall of Fame just to give you more perspective, okay? If the metagame largely consists of decks that are too similar core ideas, the development team will consider making changes to problematic cards found in such decks. Moving problematic cards into the Hall of Fame is one way in which a fresh meta can be ensured. However, it is not something the designers plan to do on a regular basis. They are more likely to move problematic cards to the Hall of Fame, whereas problematic cards from other sets will be nerfed instead.
This card is so problematic. I guess you just can't leave a big meatball on the battlefield or you could just die out of nowhere. You're going to tell me about some cool sequence of plays that comes off very Leroy Jenkins-esque, and you're going to tell me this was in the Hall of Fame. I'm really struggling with it. But I have to set aside my other card game brain. I think I just have to trust that uninteractable stuff in Hearthstone is good and that you're not just showing this to me to be a Chillwind Yeti. Let's say every single Paladin deck was a Blessed Champion deck, and they couldn't print the cards they wanted to print because they would just get Blessed Championed, and then the opponent would die, and they'd get mad and post on Reddit about how upset they were that they hadn't gotten to win any games with their new innovative brew because they died to a Blessed Champion Paladin again. Sure, let's say that's the world we live in. Let's say they send it to the Hall of Fame. Let's do it. Hall of Fame, sure? Blessed Champion.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
No, but let's go. Thumbnail. Okay. Let's do it.
Okay, yeah, this card was awful. This card was unplayable.
Damn it! I knew it! I knew that too! I'm cooked! I'm out. It's over for me.
Bro, I was sitting here like praying to God you would say it was nerfed or Hall of Fame. I showed you this card specifically because the logic and why they nerfed other cards or Hall of Fame them doesn't really line up 1-to-1 every single time. It seems like how they're feeling that year or whatever.
Commander ban list. Yeah.
And a card being like this in standard for that many years, you could definitely see the potential of this card being like really, really high. And you can't interact with it. Like if your opponent plays with this and they have a minion that kills you, it's over for you. But you're right. Like there's not any way of really playing this on any minion. Like Leroy Jenkins was like maybe your best bet.
Ice Lance. 1 mana, freeze a character. If it was already frozen, deal 4 damage instead.
Have you seen this card?
No.
You haven't seen this card?
If I did, it was played so early, I wasn't paying attention. I was like cooking chicken nuggies or something.
Okay, so I will give you context with this. Freeze Mage really liked this card.
Yeah.
That's all the information I'm going to give you.
That is really good. So, Freeze Mage, I'm sure. Very annoying. I think that is probably how people who don't play Freeze Mage would describe Freeze Mage.
I think a lot of people would agree with that sentiment, yes.
I'm used to being the annoying person. I know annoying when I see annoying.
Okay.
So the problem here, why would any Freeze Mage deck not run this? So this could definitely be, if Freeze Mage has a multi-year life, where it seems like they talk about in every tournament classic video I've watched. I still hear people say it whenever we talk about Hearthstone. Okay. Why wouldn't they run this? Okay. Seems like you would always run this. Seems good. So yeah. If they, depending how the people handling nerfs and Hall of Fame felt on this particular afternoon, did they log off of a game in which they got Ice Lanced for like the 5th time? And maybe how many of these can you have in your deck?
2.
Yeah, they just back-to-back Ice Lanced them, and all they wanted to do was play their cool new card, and they just got lanced so hard. And they were like, you know what? We would really like to make a 1-mana spell that would get played in Freeze Mage, but we made Ice Lance, and nothing's better, and I'm sick of it. So they have 2 options, Hall of Fame or Nerf. Now, is this the card that makes Freeze Mage tick? Is this like a bedrock part that every Freeze Mage deck will always have for 2 Ice Lance and then some amount of other cards? I'm going to, mostly based on my knowledge that Freeze Mage is a thing and people don't like it, I'm going to go with it got nerfed. I still can't see it being in the Hall of Fame, but I'll say this got tweaked in some way.
You got nerfed. Okay, fair enough. So the only reason I showed you Ice Lance is because you were fully aware of what Freeze Mage was. That's the only reason I showed you this card. I think that this is a very hard card to evaluate if you didn't know Freeze Mage existed. This card was Hall of Famed.
Okay.
This was the only card
what other
than
hell.
This is the only card I think from Freeze Mage other than Ice Block that was Hall of Famed. I didn't show you Ice Block this video because I had a feeling you knew that was going to be Hall of Fame based on like other videos.
Yeah.
But let me explain the reasoning for Ice Lance, which
I've got to hear this.
Is extremely interesting.
I can't believe this.
Again, the first sentence absolutely kills me. Freeze Mage is a fun deck that has been around for over 3 years now, and we'd like to see more variety with Mage decks after each major release. This move allows Freeze Mage to continue existing in Wild while creating more variety in Standard. Ice Lance also prevented us from making powerful spell damage cards and designs that allowed you to duplicate your cards. Ice Lance was also a very high burst damage card, sometimes being a component of 30 damage combos.
What?
So Ice Lance was a card that I'll talk about like both avenues of this card. You were talking about freezing a character. You're right. Horrible rate to do that. You never wanted to do that. It was like, if you did that, it was very unlikely you were going to win that game. So like what Freeze Mage play pattern was, you get to 9 mana, you play Alex Straza on your opponent. They go to 15 health. And then you have a multitude of different ways of dealing that damage, for example. So Frostbolt was this 2 mana freeze a character deal 3 damage, was the proc you needed to deal 4 damage with this card. So the basic combo is Fireball, Frostbolt for 10 mana to deal 15 after the Alex. But sometimes you need a little bit more damage, right? So you can go like Frostbolt, Ice Lance, Fireball, for example, with like potentially you're paying or something.
Dude.
What?
It just hit me. You can freeze the opponent's face.
I did. You said minion, and I said you could also freeze the enemy hero.
I wasn't listening. Oh my god! I did that whole thing thinking it could only hit minions.
Sorry. I've done worse.
No. That's not on you. I'm sure that's not on you. I'm having a good time. I remember this card.
Yeah.
I got this card so right last time.
Did you? What'd you say?
No. I said this was bad.
Okay. Let's see if you remember when I said that.
Oh my god. Yeah, 1 mana, 1/3. Whenever you cast a spell, gain +1 attack. I remember discussing this and that it was actually really good. Like really good.
It was good.
Yep. And I see that now. Okay.
A 1 mana, 1/3 is very, very good.
Yep. That was something I learned on that video, that the 1/3 rate is good. I'm not going to say nothing happened to Mana Worm and it never changed, but did it get nerfed or did it get Hall of Famed? You could just make it a 1/2 or a 1/1. It's so easy. I don't want this one in the Hall of Fame either, but maybe it is. How beloved was Mana Worm? It's very satisfying. It does feel like a very nerfable card. I'm just starting to come to terms with I do not understand what the hell they want out of their Hall of Fame. I mean, it is a fun effect. It is a very fun effect. Let's say Mana Worm went Hall of Fame. I could see it. Sure. Okay. I can see it with this card.
So Mana Worm was another type of deck for Mage called like Tempo Mage, which was the idea was you play Mana Worm, you would use your spells with Sorceress Apprentice, which was like another really key card for Mage. Mana Worm was a key component of that deck. In fact, if you had Mana Worm on turn 1, you would probably win the game. Like that's how good the card was. So they didn't Hall of Fame it, they nerfed it.
Okay, of course.
They nerfed this card from 1 to 2 mana. That was the nerf that they did. Which I'm sure I mentioned if I showed you this card before that they did this.
It is very possible you told me that.
I was like, I'm sure he's got this if I told him this card. But the main reason why, obviously, without going through it, like the curve is fucking ruined if you put this card at 2 mana. Like it is awful at this point. Like not that Mana Worm couldn't be a good card at 2 mana. It's just you don't have the flow like you used to, because you used to go Mana Worm and then Sorcerer's Apprentice and then you can Arcane Missiles or like a bunch of other stuff to make it a huge threat.
Don't forget Mana Worm into Mana Worm into spell.
Mana Worm into Mana Worm is, oh god, take me back to where I wanted to stop playing Hearthstone. It was just a very card. 2 mana was the nerf they decided to go with, which I think is completely reasonable considering how good this card was at turn 1. They just didn't want the game to just be decided whether or not you got Mana Worm and then you could defend it or not.
Oh my gosh. At this point, the dartboard's coming out. I don't give a fuck anymore. Starving Buzzard. 2 mana for a 2/1 beast. Whenever you summon a beast, draw a card. Oh shit. That's good. Is it that good? That sounds so good. Okay, I remember beast is a very popular class. I feel like I've seen a lot of beasts. I feel like...
Yes, and this is a hunter card. This is a hunter card, which means that was the most prominent class for the beast tribe.
Yep, and beast and hunter is proactive. Hunter goes face hunter's a thing. This seems like a card with attack stats that can be card advantage. They have to kill it on sight. I don't think this card lasted 7 years. Maybe it's better than I think it did because of the 1/3 problem. Maybe. God, did the 1/3s keep it at bay? I don't know, man.
It's a horrible stat line for 2 mana, for the record. Horrible.
It dies to all of the 1/3s. Still, it's so cheap. It would be so good in Magic. It really would be.
Okay.
It'd be so good in Magic. But yeah, if you're not even trading with your opponent's 1 mana card, maybe that's a big issue that holds it in check. Now we're in, like, again, Hearthstone is a different game, and anything I know from my other game might not be as good because you can't attack minions here. That's the other thing. If you played this in Magic, you can't directly attack it. You have to cast a spell to remove it typically. Here you can directly attack it. So probably any 1 or 2 mana card worth 1 or 2 mana minion worth its salt can probably kill the fuck out of this buzzard, and you didn't draw any cards. Didn't need to get nerfed. Didn't need to get Hall of Famed. Maybe it just got Hall of Fame to get... Okay, let's talk about Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame exists to get people to buy new cards.
Yes, 100%.
I've got it now. Ding, ding.
Did
capitalism strikes at last.
There you go.
This is about getting people to buy new cards. Is Starving Buzzard keeping people from buying new cards? I don't think so. I think every time they make a new beast, they're going to look at it and be like, oh, is Starving Buzzard good now? Ha ha. Come craft it and find out. Craft it and find out.
Craft and find out.
You know what? Let's do it. No changes. This card's fine.
No changes.
No changes.
Final answer.
Yeah.
Oh, buddy. Starving Buzzard was, I probably would say, the best card Hunter had in Classic. Now, the reason for this is because Hunter as a class doesn't have a ton of draw. And especially in Classic Hearthstone, there's not a ton of draw to begin with. Like, this is where, card draw started to really happen later in Hearthstone. So if you give a class the best aggressive strategy in the game, plus you give them refill, it is a very scary combo to have. Starving Buzzard was not Hall of Famed. It was nerfed.
Oh,
and it was nerfed extremely hard. Do you want to guess the nerf they did to it?
4 mana 1/1.
Actually, pretty close. It was a 5 mana 3/2 is what they decided to change it to.
Sure.
The problem with this card is how it paired with another card called Unleash the Hounds, which was 3 mana, summon a 1/1 beast for each of your opponent's minions. So you go Starving Buzzard into Unleash the Hounds. You're not only developing a board at that point for 5 mana, but you're also drawing a card for every hound summoned.
Oh, God.
And that combination allowed Hunter to always reach its burn. It always had the potential to find the card it needed while you're still developing. This card remained at 5 mana for its entire time after that. By the way, you know how fast this was nerfed? It was nerfed in Curse of Naxxramas, which means the very first expansion, this card was gone. It was axed. They were not having this card.
So this card was not fine, is what you're telling me?
This card was not fine.
Was I wrong?
It was not fine. It was not fine. This card, I think, was, if it remained at 2 mana, it would be played in every Hunter deck for the rest of its time.
Mind Control Tech. I've seen this one too. 3 mana 3/3 Battle Cry. If your opponent has 4 or more minions, take control of 1 at random. Yeah, I remember. Incredibly good rate for fighting for the board. Probably no way it lived forever. This definitely feels like a card that would get nerfed instead of Hall of Famed. Let me see if I can try to rationalize that.
Okay. Like,
my gut says they were like, they did this for a month or two and then were like, nah. I'm trying to think of how else we talked about it. This was also a card that people could play around. The more people knew about it, the more they played around it, which made it worse, which then when they stopped playing around it, made it better when you brought it when nobody expected you to bring it. It's very much a meta-in card. Maybe they didn't have to nerf it then because play rate, win rate, all the stats would, at first this would be really high because nobody would play around it. And then they'd just get yoinked and bad things would happen. Then it would decline as people got the feels bads out of their system. And the stats would probably say this card is fine. And the card probably went down in play. At some point, somebody was sitting in their Blizzard office playing their 900th game of Freeze Mage for the day. And we're like, you know what? I'm sick of playing around this. That's why I don't play. That's why I don't play an honest class like Hunter, because I'm sick of playing around Mind Control Tech. If that card just went away into its own little like Land Before Time, Great Valley with the other Hall of Fame cards that we love but also don't want to see around anymore, maybe I would play Hunter again. And then they continue playing Freeze Mage anyway. Okay. So did Mind Control Tech get Hall of Famed? I can definitely see a case for not wanting to have to think about it anymore, because every time you kind of lean into we got to have a wide board, and then and Mind Control Tech comes back, I bet that pisses you off. I'm talking myself into it. I'm going to say that they put Mind Control Tech in the Hall of Fame.
Okay, you're right. But here's the thing.
I solved Hearthstone. Oh my God.
Well,
finally. Blizzard, contact me.
Here's the thing. Unfortunately, they don't give us a reason why it was Hall of Fame.
What?
When they did this set of Hall of Fame cards, those 5 cards were all sent to the Hall of Fame. Mind Control Tech, Acolyte of Pain, Mountain Giant, Spellbreaker, and Leroy Jenkins were all rotated to the Hall of Fame during the year that Demon Hunter came out. Why? I have no idea. Mind Control Tech, I think they just did it because they didn't want players to come back into Hearthstone and get Mind Control Tech.
There you go.
I think legitimately, if you came back to play Demon Hunter and you're getting Mind Control Tech, I think you would be like, why the fuck did I come back to this game?
They did it because you degenerates play these too much.
What,
you
Acolyte of Pain?
Yeah, you have too much fun with these.
I think it was just like, if we have people coming back, we probably want to try different play styles for Hearthstone is maybe the reason.
I bet up in Legendary, since you're a known Legendary player, according to Hearthstone official lore now, I bet you didn't see much Mountain Giant, but I bet down in like lower casual ranks, Mountain Giant spam was happening always. This card is sweet.
See, I disagree with you. I really do. I think there are more fun decks that don't revolve around having a big hand for Mountain Giant. And it's funny looking back on the metagame that was Demon Hunter, like the only one of these I think that would be, or I guess Pain would be played because of Enrage Warrior. It was the only counter to Day 1 Demon Hunter. Other than Leroy, the other 3 don't really make a ton of sense. Like it's not like Mind Control Tech was very prevalent in the metagame that it was going into, right? Like it just, and like if I think about it across the whole year, I don't know why Mind Control was removed. I don't know why Mountain Giant was removed. I couldn't tell you the reason for it.
All right, let's get the chat theories. Let's write us out your theories in the comments, please. Please. Like I actually want the conspiracy theories.
It's really, and it's weird that they didn't give a blurb for any of these.
So that's happened in Magic history too, where usually we get explanations for why things are banned or unbanned with each announcement, but there have been announcements over the years that were just like, here.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
You. I think one of the, I don't know. I would imagine that a lot of these cards just saw play throughout Hearthstone's history, and if they're gonna bring back a lot of players to the game, they want to try different stuff and show how much Hearthstone has evolved. So you try something completely different. I think that's my main logic for it. But yeah, that's all the cards I'm going to show you today.